Hello, I'm Valerie Biden Owens, chair of the Biden Institute at the University of Delaware. Today I have the privilege of introducing Congressman Colin Allred. Now, Colin has represented Texas' 32nd Congressional District since 2019. Thank you, Congressman, for joining us this morning, and thank you for joining us on this episode of All Politics is Personal, a program where we introduce the public to the person behind the politician. We know anyone can research your policies and accomplishments, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about you. So let's start out with your telling me about your childhood. What are your earliest memories of growing up in North Texas?
I think my earliest memory is watching the Cowboys play on TV, which is a classic. It's not because I played football that I would say that, but it really is. I was raised by a single mother. My mom was a public school teacher in Texas. And when I was 7, we moved from where we were living in a different part of Dallas to live a street over from my aunt and uncle, who bought a house. My aunt was my mom's sister, bought a house and rented it to us for kind of reduced rent. And so I had this kind of strange dynamic where I was the only child, but I had 3 parents. I had my mom, my aunt, my uncle. And so I couldn't get away with anything. And my aunt was also a teacher. So, any trouble at school, anything like that, they took the teacher's side. And
did you go to the school your mom taught in?
No, actually, she taught at one of our rival schools, which was great whenever we played them in sports. They'd be like, oh, it's like your mom's class today,
Yeah, yeah.
But no, and my aunt taught in a different school district and just north of Dallas in Plano. But they were both obviously educators, and they all stick together. So.
What kind of kid were you in school? Did you obviously you were a jock, you were an athlete.
At one point, I kind of was the class clown for a little while, and then I became sort of like decided to just, for lack of a better term, take on leadership roles. So I was class president all through high school. I played 3 sports. I was also a math lead. I was on the math competition team. So I was just doing as much as I could. It's funny because football wasn't my favorite sport in high school. I liked baseball.
What position did you play?
I played outfield and pitched a little bit. And
did you have the same number on both jerseys? Football?
No, because actually our baseball jerseys didn't go up. The numbers didn't go up high enough. So I was 34 in football, and I had to wear 15 in baseball. But and that was my mom's favorite sport, was baseball. She had grown up in South Texas, the very tip of Texas, in Brownsville. After the Second World War, my grandfather, who was in the Navy, was a customs officer down in Brownsville, back before they combined Customs and Border Patrol. And so my mom and my aunt both went to Brownsville High, graduated from there. But down there, the strongest radio station had the St. Louis Cardinals on it. So she was a big Stan Musial fan, and that was her kind of baseball awareness was about the St. Louis Cardinals. So strangely enough, being in Texas, she wasn't a Houston Astros fan, not a Texas Rangers fan, Cardinals fan, and wanted me to be, Bob Gibson or something like that.
Well, when you went to college, did you went on scholarship, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Sports scholarship?
Mm-hmm.
And it was for football. Did you choose which sport you wanted to take a scholarship on, or what? How'd that work?
Well, it turned out I had some Major League scouts who were talking to me for a little while when I was in high school in baseball, but then it just kind of petered out. And to be honest with you, my body changed, and I got kind of broader, and just became clear that football was going to be the path. And I started getting recruited by all these different schools. And I remember some of them, I remember Purdue, for example, offered me a scholarship.
That's big football.
Yeah, and I didn't know where Purdue was, though. I'm from Dallas, okay, it's pre-internet, right,
Yeah.
And I was like, Purdue? And they told me, where it was, and I was like, that sounds cold. I'm not going that far away. So I ended up at Baylor, which is an hour and a half away, which I felt was from Dallas. I felt like it was far enough away, but not too far.
What'd you study?
I started off, at my high school, if you were doing well in school, they'd say you should be a doctor or a lawyer. So I started off trying to be a doctor. I was biology pre-med my first 2.5 years or so, and I really didn't like it. I was just trying to square peg, round hole kind of a deal. But my mom had taught history, and I was really into history, and so I switched to a history major and figured, maybe I can go to law school, maybe I can continue, get a PhD, whatever it may be. And I really enjoyed that. So after I switched, I felt much more comfortable, enjoyed that, and did better in school. Actually played better because I was, I think everything was going kind of in the right direction at that point, and so I ended up with a history major.
When you grew up, was there a big worry, or was there anything you were particularly worried about?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Dallas in the 90s and biracial, I've got a white mom and I don't look like her, and it's kind of like an awkward dynamic at times. And I felt like my school, the city of Dallas, which is a lot of racial segregation by location, but also even in the schools. The classes weren't always, kind of as integrated as you would like. And so that was always kind of awkward for me, kind of balancing that.
But you were the president of your class for the 4 years anyway.
Yeah, I think by the time I got to high school, I was starting to work it out. When I was younger, it was a little harder. But at that point, I just decided to just be myself and not kind of try and figure out which camp I was going to be in or who I was going to hang out with. And after that, people started gravitating towards me, and then I could just kind of go my own way. But I had to learn that. It wasn't something that I knew because I didn't feel like, especially when I was young, like I fit in anywhere really.
We grew up, my family always had sayings or refrains, for lessons in life and growing up. And how did your mom? What do you remember her saying to you? Or perhaps you don't, but over and over again.
Yeah.
That you said, "Mom, I get it. Your word, whatever it is."
Yeah.
Did you have your mom telling you?
Yeah. Most of our sayings were from my grandfather, who he died before I was born. But my mom was a little bit of a nervous child, and I was a little bit nervous.
She has a sister. Yeah, she has your sister.
But he would always tell her, just go in there like a big brown dog. And it was like, because a big brown dog doesn't care what you think about it. It just walks into a room and it's itself, right? And she would always tell me that, Do
you mind if I use that?
You could use it, yeah. You go into a room, you're feeling nervous, just pretend you're a big brown dog. It doesn't care about what you think. It's going to smell this, do whatever it wants to do. And honestly, I'd still think about that sometimes. Okay, this is a big deal, but I'm just going to go in there like a big brown dog.
What was your first job?
Actually, the YMCA. I grew up and was basically raised in this YMCA in my community. It was called the Town North YMCA. I couldn't work there for child labor reasons at a young, and so they made me a counselor in training for a couple of years, which basically just meant I could come to the Y for free. And then the first summer when I was eligible to actually get paid, I was a lifeguard and swim coach, and also worked at some of the camps. And I mean, I worked there for years, and I still do a lot of stuff with that Y. Some of the counselors who I knew when I was 8, 9 years old are still my friends to this day from that Y. I mean, it really had a huge impact on me, and that was my first job there. And
what was did that sense of working and being in the community and having an extended family, it seems to have rubbed off on you?
Yeah, I always kind of feel like when you're raised by a single mother, although I had my aunt and uncle as well, of course, you kind of have to rely a little more on some of these community institutions to kind of fill in the gaps a little bit. If I'm looking for, kind of male guidance, you're finding that in a YMCA counselor or in a coach or in a teacher, and so I really appreciated the Y, and I understood how important it was for me, because it wasn't just like the camps. I went to after school, I'd go to the YMCA after school care at my elementary school. They'd watch me until 5 or 5:30 when my mom could pick me up, and then I'd go to camps in the summer or any day that the school was out and my mom had to work. I'd go to like a day camp, and so really it was kind of my home away from home. But also while I was there, I was getting structure, I was learning. I wasn't just doing what a lot of my friends would do, get out of school, go home, watch cartoons, play video games. I had to do my homework, playing sports, having fun, getting that kind of guidance, and it had a huge impact on me. And I still remember that, and I still work a lot with the Y now, and organizations like it that I think can kind of help young people, just give them that leg up.
I understand you're a pretty avid reader.
I try to be. I have a technique where I have both the audiobook and the Kindle book, and they sync up, so I can get through a book pretty quickly. Like I'll listen to it and then I'll read it, listen to it and I'll read it, and then I'm done. So.
What got you into politics? What was your first political experience?
Well, I remember handing out flyers at our local community center that was also a polling center when I was a kid, but I really didn't know what I was doing. And it really wasn't until I got into high school and then started considering where I was going to go to college and how I was going to do that I realized that in Texas, I didn't like the direction that we were going in. And my family was, somewhat political, but it wasn't like a daily
Yeah, I was going to ask you,
conversation.
did your mom get you into this leaflets? Or?
They would volunteer and stuff, but they had issues that they were more concerned with than maybe campaigns. And like a lot of Texas Democrats, they missed the days of Ann Richards, and they felt like the direction was going the wrong way. And then, of course, like a lot of young folks, when the Obama campaign came around, that was sort of my first experience of, wow, this is something that I feel like I could be a part of. I was in the NFL at the time, and so wasn't able to really engage in it. But then while I was in law school after the NFL, I interned in the White House counsel's office. Actually, President Biden spoke to us when we were interns, and he put his hand on me. He won't remember it, but I was.
He will when I tell him tonight.
Yeah, I was one of the interns in that room, and I was on the aisle, and he would walk up and down the aisle and talk to people and put his hand on someone. Actually, I was one of those interns. And then I worked clerked in the DOJ during the Obama administration. Then I was doing voting rights in Texas, and was asked to come back into the administration to go to HUD under Julian Castro when he was the secretary at HUD. And so I spent a couple years of either interning or working in the administration.
But you ran a lot of things together. First, NFL, law school. How long in NFL?
Right. Yeah.
And how'd you pick that?
Yeah.
It was Tennessee, right?
Right. Well, I got into law school, and I also had a chance to play in the NFL, and I had to defer my admission.
And how'd that come up with the NFL? The scouts came around and was it a hard decision?
It's a funny story because I started getting calls from agents first who said they wanted to represent me in the NFL. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm going to law school. I'm not kidding. Like my senior year, during 2-a-days, I can remember getting the first call and they were saying, we really want to represent you or talk to you about representing you in the NFL. I was like, I'm not going to play in the NFL. I'm getting ready for law school. They said, well, no, you're going to have a chance to play in the NFL. And I wouldn't believe them until they sent me a copy of my draft report that said that I was slated to be a 5th to 7th round draft pick, which is the bottom end of the draft. It actually turned out that I wasn't drafted. I went undrafted. But so I was like, okay, I'll give this a shot. And I wasn't drafted, but immediately after the draft, I got a call from several teams that wanted to sign me. The first one was the Dallas Cowboys, and I was all excited about that. And I was ready to go. And then they pulled out of the deal because I think Jerry signed someone else. And I ended up signing with Tennessee. And
what'd your mom think about this? Deferring law school? Yeah.
I think more interested in the law school part. My mom and my aunt.
Yeah.
They were kind of
afraid
like, okay.
You'd never go back?
Yeah, and I think they just thought, well, okay, like the sports thing has been good enough, right? Like you got through college with it. What are we still doing here? But I'd never been to Tennessee, never been to Nashville. I went there, and I ended up playing 5 years with the Titans. I was actually in my 5th year, I got hurt and hurt my neck, and while I was recovering from my neck injury, I called the law school.
What happened?
I had a fusion, so I had a bulging disc, and it was pressing on my nerve. It was coming out.
You're in a game and you're tackled?
Yeah, so it was in Dallas, actually, in the 5th game of my 5th year in Dallas against the Cowboys. My family was in the stands. And I'd been having these what we call stingers, where you hit somebody and like you get like an electric shock down your arm. It's really not comfortable. And there was a running play, and I just got hit the wrong way. It wasn't even a big hit, just the wrong way. And I got a really, really severe stinger. And I was just down on the turf thinking, I'm so ready to go to law school. Like, I'm done with this.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
This is for the birds, right?
Yeah.
And after the game, my mom said, what about next week? And I said, Mom, I'm not going to be in next week. Because I knew I was going to have to get surgery. And once I got the surgery, while I was recovering, I reapplied to law school and was like, all right, let's just move on. So. And
you went the next semester, and your surgery, well, obviously you look well. But
yeah,
was it a long recovery?
It was. I mean, if I had come back to play, it would have been a tough road. But
yeah.
Since I was going to be a civilian, so to speak, it wasn't too bad. Now I'm fine. Like I have full range of motion and everything. But like, to be a linebacker with a bad neck, that's kind of like being an author, can't type or something. Like it's tough.
Yeah, yeah. And so law school, what did you do in law school? Were you elected? Did you run for class president in law school also, or did you write for law review, or did you just a normal good student?
I was our student representative to the law school leadership. So I guess I did continue that, and I was the articles editor for the African American journal, a law journal that we had there.
Why am I so surprised?
Right.
Yes.
Couldn't just do one thing.
Yeah, correct.
And in my second summer, that's when I came to D.C. and interned in the Obama counsel's office with Kathy Rumler when she was White House counsel, and loved those lawyers. They're still some of my best friends, and they've supported me when I've ran for Congress. And
Is that when you flipped the switch that you were going to run for elective office?
No, at that time I was thinking I was going to be a lawyer for my career. I thought I'd be a government lawyer, to be honest with you. And while I was at HUD during the 2016 election, I was thinking, well, maybe I'll continue working in Hillary Clinton's administration, incoming. And then, of course, the election happened. And my wife and I decided that we were going to move back to Dallas. And I thought, well, I feel like I have to do something. This is going to be a tough time for the country. And decided to run for the congressional district where I was born and raised and that we were moving back to, that the incumbent there didn't even have a challenger in 2016. He'd been unopposed and was a 22-year incumbent. Seemed like he was pretty entrenched. But the district was changing, and I thought it was ready for a new voice.
Did you have babies by this time?
No, we didn't yet. We had our first child a month into my time in Congress, which is great timing.
Oh, yeah. Your wife thought that was probably spectacular.
Right.
Yeah.
So running against a 22-year incumbent, I ended up winning by 6.5 points, which is a big deal. Come to, President Biden calls me on election night, I still have a video of him calling me and congratulating me. He endorsed me and was kind enough to help me in that campaign. And then came to Congress and immediately we have our first son, Jordan. And I was the first member of Congress ever to take paternity leave. I announced it, I discussed it, I did an op-ed about why I was doing paternity leave. And
you're young in Congress now.
Yes, yeah.
So it's the beginning
of my term.
And that's pretty courageous.
Yeah, I mean, I had to miss votes.
Yeah.
We didn't have proxy voting at that time, so I missed a lot of votes. I ended up only taking about 2 weeks of actually missing time here. But, then we have our second son about a month into my second term, or 2 months into my second term. At that time, I took a full month. So,
did you get blowback from your constituents?
We got a little bit, but we also, I think, I was very open and active in talking about why I was doing this and what kind of the idea behind it was, and to encourage other men to take paternity leave. There's a lot of really interesting research on the importance of men taking leave. It's better for the family, better for the kind of relationship, better for the kids, and also better for the father when they take paternity leave. But a lot of men, even if they have the option, don't, and that has all kinds of ripple effects in the workplace. And so I wanted to kind of show that and talk about it. So wrote an op-ed, discussed it a lot, did TV interviews about it, tried to kind of make it something where we were making it into a learning experience. And for the most part, I think most people appreciated it.
Yeah, I think it, we're used to women, but women on the career ladder are very hesitant many times, to step out, because then when they come back in, things change, and
because their male counterparts are not going to take it.
Yeah, that's right. And so you were a great example.
I tried to be. I didn't know I was the first ever, because I thought that maybe someone else had done it, and it wasn't until an interviewer told me this was the first, at least that they could find, first time ever. Now I think other men might have taken leave but not announced it, that they were taking paternity leave, but I was. And obviously also when you talk about Congress, not all of them are of the age where they'd be having their first child while they're in Congress, right? They're usually a little
How
further
old were
along.
you when you were elected?
So I guess I was 37, so, and I'm 39 now, or 36 maybe. I was 36, I can't remember,
What big thing or little thing what drove you most to go into the career of politics? Because it's it's not an easy road, and you have other options, and you have a law degree. What was the compelling force, the fire in your belly?
Yeah, I started to feel like my work as a civil rights lawyer, and I was specifically doing a lot of work on voting rights, just kept running into walls that we were not going to be able to get through with just litigation. The courts were changing, which is part of it. They were getting more hostile to those claims, but also just felt like there were some things that needed to be done legislatively, and also they were outside of the scope of just voting rights or this specific case, and I felt like there's really only one way to go about doing this. Like, we've got to pass laws, we got to change our policies around some of these important issues, and it's like, well, if anybody's going to do it, I guess I'll do it. But also, a lot of the folks who were some of my biggest supporters had been big George W. Bush supporters. He's actually my constituent. President Bush is. We get along really well. He's a great guy. His house is right across the street from my elementary school.
You are a living, breathing example of all politics is personal.
That's true.
I cannot end our discussion without being a Biden and asking you some rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Are you ready for it?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, so what's your favorite ice cream?
Mint chocolate chip.
Oh, you and Joe. Jeez.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I'd love to be an author, just sit around and write. Wouldn't that be great?
It is pretty good. It's pretty hard.
You just wrote a book, so
it was like giving birth to an elephant.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah.
So think about it.
Yeah, okay.
One word to describe you.
I think I'm determined, yeah.
Favorite TV show?
West Wing.
Favorite music?
Like 2000s hip hop, which I know is also probably your favorite, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm back to the 60s rock and roll. Do you have a hidden talent?
I can build computers. So if you need that, let me know.
Could you come live with me? Because I destroy computers. I have an electric-magnetic field around me that I touch.
My mom has that, actually.
Yeah, that's a power. It's a superpower.
Yeah, she's like, it broke. Well, how did it break?
I don't know. Something always goes wrong, and I didn't do it. I swear to God, I didn't do it. No. So that's my superpower, is breaking computers. What's your superpower? If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
I don't know. I just think, as a football player, it'd just be great to just not feel any pain, right? Like, that's fine. Like,
that's a great answer.
I don't know. Like, that was the number one thing we always had to push through. So I'd like to have.
What's your theme song?
Theme song.
When you have one, when you go up and
Happy by Farrell. It's my kids love it. It's a family fun song. So
okay. And tell me your children, their ages.
My son Jordan is 3, and my son Cameron is 1. So 2 boys.
Well, God bless you. And thank you for everything that you're doing. And I'm so glad that you are a Democrat from North Dallas.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Well, keep giving them hell, all right?
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you to the Stavros Niarchos Foundation. And remember, all politics is personal.